Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Radha Madhav Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Nita Gora Haribo 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 Nita Gora Haribo Nita Gora Haribo 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 Nita Gora Haribo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swami Niti Namine Nama Acharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakata Damadaya Nagara Grama Tarine Mukha Karoti Vachalam Pangoram Gayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Mande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh, yeah. We can read the prayers, yeah.
Which, the location prayers?
Yeah. I can't see it though, but yeah, it's okay. I mean, I just need to know which mantra it is. Yeah. Thank you, yeah. If you like to chant together. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama-shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. 16 onwards. Right? 4, 8, 16 to 26 as I'm told, yeah.
This incident was unbearable to Suniti's patience. She began to burn as if in forest fire, and in her grief she became just like a burnt leaf and so lamented. As she remembered the words of her co-wife, her bright, lotus-like face filled with tears, and thus she spoke.
She also was breathing very heavily, and she did not know the factual remedy for the painful situation. Not finding any remedy, she said to her son, "My dear son, don't wish for anything inauspicious for others. Anyone who inflicts pain upon others suffers himself from that pain."
Suniti said, "My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi is so, because the king, your father, does not consider me his wife or even his maidservant. He feels ashamed to accept me. Therefore, it is a fact that you have taken birth from the womb of an unfortunate woman, and by being fed from her breast, you have grown up."
My dear boy, whatever has been spoken by Suruchi, your stepmother, although very harsh to hear, is factual. Therefore, if you desire to sit on the same throne as your stepbrother, Uttama, then give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Without further delay, you must engage yourself in worshiping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Suniti continued, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so great that simply by worshipping his lotus feet, your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, acquired the necessary qualifications to create this universe. Although he is unborn and is the chief of all living creatures, he is situated in the exalted post because of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom even great yogis worship by controlling the mind and regulating the life air.
Suniti informed her son, your grandfather, Manu, executed great sacrifices with distribution of charity, and thereby with unflinching faith and devotion he worshipped and satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By acting in that way, he achieved greatest success in material happiness, and afterwards achieved liberation, which is impossible to obtain by worshipping the demigods.
My dear boy, you also should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is very kind to his devotees. Persons seeking liberation from the cycle of birth and death always take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Becoming purified by executing your allotted occupation, just situate the Supreme Personality of Godhead in your heart without deviating for a moment. Engage always in his service.
Jai Krishna. My dear Dhruva, as far as I am concerned, I do not find anyone who can mitigate your distress but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose eyes are like lotus petals. Many demigods, such as Lord Brahma, seek the pleasure of the goddess of fortune, but the goddess of fortune herself, with a lotus flower in her hand, is always ready to render service to the Supreme Lord.
The great sage Maitreya continued, the instruction of Dhruva, Maharaja's mother, Suniti, was actually meant for fulfilling his desired objective. Therefore, after deliberate consideration and with intelligence and fixed determination, he left his father's house.
The great sage Narada overheard this news, and understanding all the activities of Dhruva Maharaj, he was struck with wonder. He approached Dhruva, and touching the boy's head with his all-virtuous hand, he spoke as follows.
How wonderful are the powerful Kshatriyas! They cannot tolerate even a slight infringement upon their prestige. Just imagine, this boy is only a small child, yet harsh words from his stepmother proved unbearable to him.
Thank you. The focus verse 23. नान्यां तथा पद्मपलासलोचनात् दुःखाचिदं ते मृगयामि कञ्चना यो मृग्यते हस्तगृहीता पद्मया श्रियेतरैरङ्गविगृह्यमानया नान्यं तथा पद्मपलासलोचनात् दुःखाचिदं ते मृगयामि काञ्चना यो मृग्यते हस्तगृहीता पद्मया श्रीयेतरैरङ्गमिं गृह्यमानया नान्यं तथा पद्मपलासलोचनात् दुःखाचिदं ते मृगयामि काञ्चना यो मृग्यते हस्तगृहीता पद्मया श्रीयेतरैरङ्गमिं गृह्यमानया न अन्यं, no others, tataha, therefore, padmapalasalochanat, from the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead. Dukkachidam, one who can mitigate others' difficulties. Te, your. Mrigayami, I am searching after. Kanchana, anyone else. Yaha, who. Mrigyate, searches. Hastagrihita padmaya, taking a lotus flower in the hand. Shriya, the goddess of fortune. Itarai, by others. Anga, my dear boy. Vimgrihyamanaya, one who is worshipped. Actually, it would be Kanchana. It's not Kanchana, it's Kanchana. Kanchana would be gold. Kanchana would be anyone else. Translation. My dear Dhruva, as far as I'm concerned, I do not find anyone who can mitigate your distress but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose eyes are like lotus petals. Many demigods, such as Lord Brahma, seek the pleasure of the goddess of fortune. But the goddess of fortune herself, with the lotus flower in her hand, is always ready to render service to the Supreme Lord. Ooh, thank you. Om Jnana Timirandasya, without the light. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Suniti pointed out herewith that the benediction received from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that received from the demigods are not on an equal level. Foolish persons say that no matter whom one worships will get the same result, but actually that is not a fact. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that benedictions received from the demigods are all temporary and are meant for the less intelligent. In other words, because the demigods are all materially conditioned souls, although they are situated in very exalted positions, their benedictions cannot be permanent. Permanent benediction is spiritual benediction, since a spirit soul is eternal. It is also said in Bhagavad Gita that only persons who have lost their intelligence go to worship the demigods. Therefore, Suniti told her son that he should not seek the mercy of the demigods, but should directly approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to mitigate his misery. Material opulences are controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his different potencies, and specifically the Goddess of Fortune. Therefore, those who are after material opulences seek the pleasure or mercy of the Goddess of Fortune. Even the highly placed demigods worship the Goddess of Fortune, but the Goddess of Fortune, Mahalakshmi herself, is always seeking the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone, therefore, who takes to the worship of the Supreme Lord automatically receives the blessings of the Goddess of Fortune. At this stage of his life, Dhruva Maharaj was seeking material opulences, and his mother advised rightly that even for material opulences, it is better to worship not the demigods, but the Supreme Lord. Although a pure devotee does not seek benedictions from the Supreme Lord for material advancement, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita that pious persons go to the Lord even for material benedictions. A person who goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material gain is gradually purified in the association with the Supreme Lord. Thus, he becomes free from all material desires and is elevated to the platform of spiritual life. Unless one is raised to the spiritual platform, it is not possible for him to completely transcend all material contamination. Suniti, the mother of Dhruva, was a far-seeing woman, and therefore she advised her son to worship the Supreme Lord and no one else. The Lord is described herein as lotus-eyed, Padma Palasa Lochana. When a person is fatigued, if he sees a lotus flower, all his fatigue can be immediately reduced to nil. Similarly, when an aggrieved person sees the lotus face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately all his grief is reduced. A lotus flower is also an insignia in the hand of Lord Vishnu, as well as in the hand of Goddess of Fortune. The worshippers of the Goddess of Fortune and Lord Vishnu together are certainly very opulent in all respects, even in material life. The Lord is sometimes described as Shiva Virinchinutam, which means that Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma also offer their respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. So let us all take a moment to look at our Padma Palasa Lochanat, Shri Shri Kalachandji, and may all our miseries be mitigated. Hariva! I'm trying to connect. Today is the appearance day, celebration of appearance, right? Of Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I did press on that. And then anything else?
I'm just gonna look up the display.
I was meditating on the connection between Dhruva Maharaj and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And I had the good fortune of meeting Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in Mayapur. And I just wrote a few lines of comparison, or like a just simple like poem about Bhakti Tirtha Swami. We can start the talk today with meditating on such a great king. He was no less than a king for ISKCON, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. So we're speaking about the Prince Dhruva Maharaj, and we'll talk about our Prince Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. We're just waiting for it to connect.
How to put it onto a...
Oh, but I don't have the. I didn't bring the adapter, because usually we connect it through AirPlay.
Yeah, through wire. Can you pull up the AirPlay?
I don't know. I thought that was it.
No, it's the Roku. Is it?
Last time when she just hit this at the top, the Roku showed up. Wait, when she hit, how was it?
Not this.
No, you had a screen on the screen.
Yeah.
So go back to your home, like close out of this, and then.
This I tried, but.
No. There was a screen on the screen before, remember?
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Yay.
In the realm of spiritual grace, we find a teacher, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, so kind. Like Dhruva Maharaj, his dedication shines, touching lives, his teachings divine. With a heart ablaze like Dhruva's fire, Bhakti Tirtha Swami inspired souls to aspire, his wisdom a beacon guiding the way to deepen devotion each and every day. Through challenges faced, he stood tall. Just like Dhruva, he answered the call. With determination, he walked the path, imparting love, dispelling darkness with a laugh. His teachings, like jewels, precious and rare, illuminate hearts, removing all despair. In the footsteps of Dhruva, he led the way, uplifting spirits with devotion's sway. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, a true spiritual guide, forever in our hearts his presence does reside. His love and compassion, an eternal flame, igniting souls chanting the Lord's holy name. Just as Dhruva's determination touched the skies, Bhakti Tirtha Swami's teachings make hearts rise. In gratitude we honor his sacred legacy, forever grateful for his divine energy. Though physically departed, he lives on. In the hearts of devotees, his spirit strong. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, a beacon of light, guiding souls towards eternal delight. So let us carry his teachings in our souls, embracing love as our devotion unfolds. With Dhruva's determination and Bhakti Tirtha Swami's grace, we walk the path seeking the Lord's embrace. Jai His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Okay, we come back to the verse of today. I put together some important words in Sanskrit, starting from text 16 up to 26. So here we see Suruchi and Suniti, the two wives of Uttanapad, with completely contrast characters. On one side we see Suniti. Her name is really befitting. Niti means values, virtues, morals. So her focus was values. Suruchi, ruchi means tastes. So she had certain tastes. Not very good taste, a little bit of a nasty taste. But that was, Romapad Maharaj, he says, Sunasti, Sunasti, because she was so nasty. So we'll call her Sunasti, because her ruchi was pretty stale. So this is Suniti's situation. She's losing her patience. Utsrijya dairyam. How many of us have felt that? Losing our patience, losing our determination. So she's going through this. So we can find lessons from these words of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then she started lamenting. Vilalapa. She felt helpless, powerless, and burned in grief. Shoka dava agnina. That's the analogy given there. Burnt by the creeper. The creeper burned by the forest fire. And then the next verse is speaking about when she's consoling Dhruva Maharaj, she's saying, Mamangalam tata pareshmamsta. Do not wish ill for others. That's a tough one. When we are hurt, when we are betrayed, it's very difficult to not wish bad. It's like when we are squeezed, whatever is inside us comes out. If there is resentment can come out. But that is her advice, and that again proves that she's Suniti. She has values. Even though Uttanapad was neglecting Suniti, it can show Suniti and Suruchi in Kali Yuga is both within us. There is a part of us which is like Suruchi. I want this, I want that, I like this, I don't like this, I want to be treated with respect. All that, and then there is the Suniti. Suniti is like, no, I want to do the right thing, and sometimes we're not appreciated for doing the right thing. So Maharaj Uttanapad is neglecting Suniti. Even though he's neglecting Suniti, her values have not budged. So she's saying, Aradhya dokshaja pada padmam. And he's saying, go and worship Adokshaja, Krishna, without being envious. Vimatsaraha. Matsara means envy. Vimatsara means without. Being free of envy, go and worship the Lord. And that's a very huge topic today. We'll get into that with envy, even devotional service can become polluted. And then the other word is Yasyangri Padmam Paricharya. Only by worshipping his lotus feet can we be freed from miseries. Nobody else can actually rescue us. The other word in the other verse is Bhritya Vatsalam. Bhritya Vatsalam means he's very kind to his servants. So Suniti is telling Dhruva Maharaj to go to the kind-hearted person because he's been hurt by the harsh words of Suruchi. Manasya avastapya. So actually that is... So, means put your mind on that personality and purified by Bhakti Yoga. Nina dharma bhavaite means that's our dharma. The real dharma is bhakti towards the Lord. So, perform that dharma. And bhajasva purusham, Always engage in the service of the Lord without deviation. Artha agamam vachate. So, what did Dhruva Maharaj do? In order to fulfill his heartfelt desire, he was convinced by Suniti, because he was hesitating initially to go to the forest and worship Vishnu, because he heard from Suruchi, go and worship Vishnu, so ask him so you can be born through my womb. And Dhruva Maharaj, being raised by Suniti, said, I don't want to be born to her. So that was his hesitation. That was the only hesitation. Otherwise, he had no doubts. He said, I don't want to be born by her, so therefore I don't want to worship Vishnu. But then Suniti explained that, no, the Lord has capacity to fulfill any of your desires. Then Dhruva Maharaj was consoled. Go, now you go. So sometimes when we are told, go and apologize to that person, and we feel, no, but I was not at fault. Sometimes we don't do it for the person. We're not surrendering to the person, but we're surrendering to the Lord. Then we have the last verse, which is about Narada Muni. He came to know. How did he come to know? Because he's Trikala Jnani. He knows the past, present, and the future. Aghagnena. What did he do as soon as he came? He mercifully took his hand and he touched Dhruva Maharaj's head. Manabhangam amsrutyam. And he was very perplexed. He was very amazed by how Dhruva Maharaj was affected by these harsh words, insulting words. So immediately Narad Muni glorifies that Kshatriya tendency to not want to become, not to come under undeserving personalities. That's Kshatriya nature. The Kshatriya stands up for justice. Now, I would like to get into the personalities in this story. There's a lot of psychology here. There's a lot of lessons, relationship lessons here. On one side, we have our narcissist, the villain character. We can say Sunati, who is a narcissist. Narcissist, you can remember. Why is she a narcissist? Because she actually was deeply insecure, which is the case if you study psychology of narcissists. They're wounded, they're so insecure within that they try to compensate for their inner lack by being aggressive on the outside. So Suruchi knew that Dhruva Maharaj, being the older son of Uttanapad, will take to the higher, that he will become the next king. So she couldn't handle that. She was very envious, she was very greedy. So the tendency of hers was enabled by the enabler, we can say at that moment, Uttanapad. His name, as it suggests, he was tired of the being controlled by the narcissist. So by the bitter taste by Sunasti's character. So although he wasn't giving importance to the virtuous wife, Suniti, and he was depriving her, he still had fear of Suruchi. And this again shows the contrast in the verses that we read. Narad Muni is amazed with the Kshatriya mentality of Dhruva Maharaj to want to leave home and go away. On another hand, we see the father of Dhruva Maharaj, Uttanapad, who's being controlled by his wife. Like, what Kshatriya is that? So we see a contrast there. And we have a lesson there to learn. That we shouldn't be controlled by people. We shouldn't become obliged to non-devotees, or we shouldn't become obliged to those personalities who don't push us towards Krishna. If we do, then we make mistakes like Uttanapad. Then, what else here? And then we have the insecurities of Suruchi, which was not processed. And because of her not processing, she was gripped by her selfishness and envy, and she unhesitatingly chastised the innocent Dhruva. And this brings up another lesson, that as parents, when we speak harshly to our children, or sometimes we use our parents as therapists, we vomit out our frustrations towards the children, then it causes a deep negative impact. And even if we're seeing in this story that Dhruva Maharaj did go to the forest, did see Lord Vishnu, thank you. We do see that Dhruva Maharaj still had that unprocessed resentment. Even later, when, we can see later on, he becomes so angry with the Yakshas, he started killing everyone. So the parental rage and dysfunctionality remains within the child. So the importance is to try our best to not mess up our children, even if our parents messed us up. But the lesson for the children is that parents have their own karma and dysfunctionality, and they're not necessarily trying to hurt us. They have, like Suruchi had her own unprocessed baggage, and she didn't know how to handle her insecurities. So that's another lesson here we can learn. Then there's another interesting question we may think. Suruchi is actually making a good point. She says, without the Supreme Lord's blessings, you cannot get anything. Go to him. And Suniti is confirming that that's a right statement. Now we may wonder, is it because Suruchi is also a devotee? Is she like deeply hidden devotee and therefore she's guiding Dhruva towards the right path? And it's just that a little bit, no, actually. The truth is, a narcissist has the ability to manipulate, and her tendency was to manipulate Uttanapad. She wanted Uttanapad to like her even more, because she knew Dhruva will become the next king. So she wanted to secure her position. So she pretended to also be devotional. She was like, I'm not only beautiful, but I'm also very devotional. And I know Krishna conscious principles. The lesson there is, even if we know Krishna conscious principles, if our motivation is not right, then we may make envious. Our envy will lead us to making terrible decisions. And her uncontrolled envy and thoughts did take shape of harsh words. And that although it appeared very mature to tell him to go to Vishnu, her envy was spreading like wildfire, and there was an indirect effect. She was actually envious of Suniti. And poor Dhruva had nothing to do with it, but that's the nature of envy. If we don't process envy, if we don't control it, if we don't console the inner child, it'll come out and expand like wildfire, and it'll take control everywhere. And that's very detrimental for relationships. Now, I want to get into like a few practical lessons. Some of them I did touch upon, important lessons that we can learn from text 16 to 26. First is from Uttanapad. What we learn is that we become weaker than ourselves when we succumb to undue attachments and unfair obligations. And we have seen several examples in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Ramayana, whether it's Dasharath Maharaj, whether it's Bhishma, whether it's Dronacharya. They all were obliged by certain duties, and then they became weak, and they were not able to perform justice, and that was Uttanapad. Being a leader, he was not being just. That was not the way to handle the situation. So something for us, let's not succumb to undue attachments and unfair obligations. Then another lesson we can learn is, and if anybody has any comments or questions, every lesson I'm reading through, you can just raise your hand and we can take it. You don't have to wait till the end. The second is, as I mentioned earlier, our dealings with young ones shapes their mindset. A love-laden heart coupled with sensitive speech will enable to bring out the best in them. And I said also to the children that even if our parents are dysfunctional, we can still reparent ourselves and go and take shelter of those teachers, mentors who are around, and that we can learn to process it so we don't pass it on to the next generation. Then many important relationship lessons come up in these verses, in these chapters. If cordial relationships is one of your priority, then it's very necessary to curtail the urge to speak harshly. And Srimad Bhagavatam actually says that for a sadhaka, if we have temper issues, temper tantrums, anger as an issue, it says that even a calf's hoof print, to cross over a puddle of calf's hoof print for a person who has anger issues, it's like crossing an ocean. So it's that important in our spiritual lives to work on that. Then this point is brought up. Envy is the most undesirable quality for a devotee, and even for a non-devotee. It disrupts relationships to the core, and an envious person cannot tolerate others' superiority over oneself, and they always try to pull They always try, sorry, there's a mistake, always try to pull others down. And that's what is Suruchi is doing that. She's pulling everyone down. She's pulling Uttanapad down, she's pulling Dhruva down, she's pulling Surniti down, she's causing distress to everyone. I want to share an incident. This is a true story. It's a little bit of a horror story. This is about ghosts. My astrology teacher, he knows how to bust ghosts. He knows how to remove ghosts. So he was speaking about a particular ghost who was a Brahma Rakshasa. That's like the most powerful of all. And I had a question. Brahma Rakshasa basically means somebody who had Brahma Gyan, somebody who was a Brahmana, but somehow or another they are either murdered or they were betrayed or they have hold some envy and resentment towards someone else, and they have to be a Brahma Rakshasa for a certain long amount of time. So I had this question to my astrology guru, that how is it possible that somebody who's a devotee, who knows the Vedas, who knows Bhagavatam, who knows the Puranas, who knows all the Siddhi powers, how can they ever become a Brahma Rakshasa ghost? How is it possible? And he said, one reason is envy. If no matter we wake up early, we do all our sadhana, we learn all the verses, we do build temples, whatever it is that we do, if we still carry resentment, envy, revenge, attitude of revenge, those personalities take body of Brahma Rakshasa and they're stuck. And my astrology teacher's father had to face one of these Brahma Rakshasas who knew all the Narshinga mantras, he knew all the Yagya mantras, and as he was doing Yagya to take these, bust these ghosts, this Brahma Rakshasa was together chanting the mantras. Chanting along, like, I got no problem with Narshingadev, because my problem is my envy and my revenge attitude. And this particular Brahma Rakshasa once in the town of Karnataka, where I come from and my teachers also, these Brahma Rakshasas sometimes have amazing powers, like superpowers, that they can even control the environment. They can stop the rain and they can cause the heat to increase. And this particular one did that to one of the villages in Karnataka. And so my astrology guru's father had to go there to pacify the situation, and he would go several times chanting the mantras. And because this Brahma Rakshasa ghost already knew all these mantras, every time he was reciting to pull it out, the Brahma Rakshasa would recite mantras to put it in. And then he had to like invoke the deity of the village and give more power and strength. And then finally they were able to capture and liberate that soul by curing its envy. So this is the importance of not carrying that envy, because it's undesirable, not just for others around us, even for our own development. We cannot make it back to Godhead if we carry that around. And we learn from Suruchi, what did she say? Look, go worship the Lord, so ask him so you can be born from my womb. Too much self-importance there. So attributing too much self-importance and being self-righteous makes one oblivious to the obvious and then oppressive to the innocent. And that's her situation. She was trying to control the inevitable, and the result was not very good. Her own son became a Dhruva. Dhruva means somebody who's long-lived, strong, stays. But Uttama, the other brother of Dhruva Maharaj, son of Suruchi, was actually Uttama. According to the name, he was actually a very good soul. But he became a Dhruva, means he died early. Then another lesson we can learn, like I said about Suruchi, she's pretending to be a devotee, pretending to show that she knows devotional principles without applying it, without practicing it, just to manipulate and control. So those brimming with hypocrisy spend most of the time fault-finding and flaunting their flawlessness. I should have put that like brackets, flawlessness. That's what she's saying. My womb is very special. See, so much contradiction there. Go to the Supreme Lord, only he can make you, what? Come back in my womb, be born as my son. So there's too much narcissism here. And envy is contagious. The long arms of envy eventually trap others in the same net as the object of envy. That's another lesson we see. I mean, if only they could live as a happy family. Does it ever happen? Well, it could happen for us. I mean, this is actually a picture when Dhruva comes back from meditation, I hope I see. But I don't think, according to Bhagavatam, Suruchi was not around when Dhruva came back. So this is like a fantasy image of what if, wish it was like this. So we can also wish if my envy was not taking control of me. I wish without anarthas. Okay. So this is a concept I want to bring up today. It's for those of you maybe you already heard this kintsugi. Kintsugi is a special art of putting back broken pots together with gold. And this is a lesson. We can see that Dhruva Maharaj, he was instigated, he was insulted. So because of our karma, because of our bad karma, sometimes we may undergo such similar circumstances. And we can do this, or let the Lord do this. Actually, we can't do it. Only the Lord can do this. The Lord can put us back together with gold. And we shouldn't see the unwanted, unpleasant situations as an obstacle. It can actually be helpful. Okay, I think I should pause here and take questions. Any comments? Yes, Prabhu. Microphone.
Is it actually too much of a generalization to say that any conflict that we have, especially in devotional circles, is based on envy? Is that too much of a generalization?
Thank you. This is such an important point. Conflict is not the problem. I have this other, let me just show you this slide because it's very relevant. So, conflict, we're talking about conflict. Cause of Kurukshetra war. The issue apparently looked like it's territorial dispute, right? That's how it looked like. But actually, the real cause, under the tip of the iceberg, was people with issues. So it was Dhritarashtra's attachment to the obstinate Duryodhana and so on and so forth. So in every conflict, in every situation, there is an apparent cause. Oh, this is the cause, whatever it is. Somebody didn't close the door. Let's say that's the conflict. Somebody keeps leaving the door open. That's the conflict. So conflict in itself, disagreement in itself is never the problem. The actual problem is people with issues, like Suruchi. She definitely had that envy because, Dhruva couldn't become the future king and I should prevent that and I have to gain Uttanapad's favor right from the beginning. I have to make Dhruva go away from Uttanapad so that doesn't happen. So that was the problem. All those premeditated, envious defense, that is the problem. So disagreement, conflicts are a natural part of our growth, especially in a religious organization or any organization, any big project. But the intention behind it, the motivation behind is what Krishna sees. He doesn't care who is more angry, who throws more pillows at each other, whatever, who throws more quotes at each other. Krishna is not like a human being. If our actions are wrong, if we're screaming and shouting, Krishna is like, oh, poor this person, he's losing his peace of mind. But let me look at the intention of that person. What is the intention behind that screaming and shouting? Then Krishna will take the intention and forgive the action. But in some cases, action can be very good, like Suruchi, go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a very good words. Words are coming out right. And Suniti is agreeing to it. Narada Muni is agreeing to it. Everybody is agreeing that yes, go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But her intentions were off. And in that circumstance, Krishna accepts the actions. Unlike we usually tend to judge other people by their intentions, and we want to be judged by we judge others by their actions, and we want others to judge us by our intentions. So what Krishna does, if the intention is wrong, he'll accept our action. And if our action is wrong, he'll accept our intention. So the answer, transcendental, philosophical, spiritual answer is that conflict is never the issue. The intention behind is intention. But for Krishna, again, he has his own parameters of how he will determine who's right, who's wrong. Because, this whole presentation today can also be called, who is at fault? Is Suruchi at fault? Is Uttanapad at fault? Is Dhruva at fault? Is Suniti at fault? Who is at fault? We know what Krishna thinks. That is our focus. Yeah.
Thank you. This was a lovely class. My question is, so I find that sometimes people's personalities, there's a wide range of personalities, and how they're set, their natural personality sometimes is in a natural conflict with someone's other natural personality. So I was wondering, did Krishna create my personality? Did I co-create my unique personality with Krishna's ingredients? Or is it something that I created myself?
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting question. There are two aspects of personality. One is Swarupa and one is Swabhava. Swarupa is eternal, whereas Swabhava is temporary. Swarupa means our eternal identity. And what is our eternal identity? Yes, Jiver Swarup hoy, Krishna Nityadas. So we are eternally parts and parcels of the Lord. We are His servants. And then there is Swabhava. So Swabhava means our personality, our external behaviors, how we speak, how we think, what motivates us, all those things which we carry through the samskaras. So like you said, co-create. So we co-create our Swabhava because of our previous life associations, this life association. Samskara basically is something, what's the right word for samskara in English? Impressions. So based on the impressions from previous life, this life, parents' desires, we create our personality. Like in Dhruva Maharaj's case, his personality is that one of determination. So Kshatriya blood is flowing in him. He has that Uttanapad. Uttanapad is not an ordinary person. He's the grandson of Brahma. And Dhruva Maharaj is the son of the grandson of Brahma. So the blood, the DNA is definitely there. At the same time, the mother is also a little traumatized by all this unjust behavior. So together they're co-creating. Dhruva Maharaj's personality is that one of determination. If Suniti didn't correct him, maybe he would be in a little bit of a revengeful attitude, which he later becomes when Uttama is killed, when the brother gets killed. Anyway, I don't want to reveal the storyline, you have to go through it. But you will see the character development through these chapters, how Dhruva Maharaj reacts, what happens to him when he becomes the emperor, and all that. And okay, this is not something else. So I don't know if it answers your question. So there are, the Swarupa doesn't change. We can never become God. That position is already taken. And at the same time, we can develop that Swabhava. We can purify it, filter out all these anarthas. Cheto, darpana marjanam. We can cleanse the mirror of our heart, become the best version of ourselves. Usually when we talk about personality types with a mundane perspective, we think, oh, that personality type is better because they get more done. Right? This personality type is creative. So that's the material consideration. But to achieve our Swarupa, which is the eternal identity, we need to go through this. In other words, that's the destination. So achieving our eternal identity, Swarupa is our destination. And through our Swabhava, which is a journey, Swabhava is also very important. Because if we can act according to our nature and purify our personality to align to Krishna's will, that's how we can reach the destination. Therefore, the destination and journey both are important. So,
almost like a tool. We're crafting our personality as a tool to get to that eternal person.
Well, you can use tools to enhance that personality. Even the Swabhava is already, once we're born, even the personality is already there. But you can be, let's say, an example. Somebody is a perfectionist. Somebody is very much into righteousness, like Yudhishthir Maharaj. He was very much righteous type of person. In the Enneagram type, he would be a type 1. Very righteous. This is right, this is wrong, and I cannot do wrong, and always truth and always justice. That's his personality type. We have a lot of them around. you can be a perfectionist in sattvaguna, rajaguna, and tamoguna. Means you can be a sattvaguna person in acting in goodness. You can be a type 1 perfectionist in the mode of rajas guna, passion. I'm right, everyone else is wrong. And then you can act as a perfectionist in the mode of tamas, which is ignorance. Ignorance means destruction, basically. Destroying the enthusiasm of others by always correcting them, always judging them, always making them feel wrong. So that would be a perfectionist in the mode of tamas or ignorance. That's detrimental for the person and for everyone around. So there's nothing wrong in a perfectionist, but which mode are you operating on? We cannot change the fact that Yudhishthir Maharaj was a perfectionist. He couldn't become Bhima. He would never become Bhima, and there's no need for him to become Bhima. The 5 fingers, they're all perfect as they are. No finger needs to be taller or shorter. It's exactly like Pandavas. Bhima had his personality. Bhima was a challenger. Duryodhan was also a challenger. But Duryodhan was challenger in the mode of ignorance. When he says, no? He says, all these Bhishma, Drona, Pramukataha, Sarvesham, all these great personalities, Bhishma, Drona, all these personalities, they have come to this battlefield to give up their lives for my sake. Challenger, but in the mode of tamas. Whereas Bhima, he's a challenger. When Ashwatthama's weapon is coming, he didn't want to bow down. Bhima, he said, no, I'll face it. And Krishna said, excuse me, I created that astra. Can we respect and bow down? And he says, okay, fine. So the same personality types, he's not going to change. Bhima is not going to change. And Duryodhana is not going to change. But you can, I'm looking for that word, you can improve, enhance, filter out this rajas and the tamas and become more the sattvic version of that. So in that way, even swabhava is also within us in this body. You can change in next life, but this life, this is the swabhava, the personality. But you can filter it out. You can enhance it. Yeah, there's a particular word I'm thinking. When you refine it, thank you. That's the word I'm thinking. We can refine our swabhava. We can refine our personality. And what is that? And then when we refine it, then we can align to God's will. It's not like I like that personality type, I want to become like that. Not in that way. More like this is my nature, this is my motivation to try to do the right thing. Justice is very important for me. It's okay, but then understand what is justice. Understand what is justice in God's words. Is that helpful? Thank you. Anything else? Yes. Microphone.
These traits that we speak about a lot, envy, anger, harsh speech, how do we practically work on these in our lives to remove them or refine them?
Wow. I'm waiting for that answer, but I want to show you, not to get too much into details, because this did come in the purport 23. And so it says here, last but one paragraph. A person who goes to the Supreme Personality of Godhead for material gain is gradually purified in the association with the Supreme Lord. Thus he becomes free from all material desires and is elevated to the platform of spiritual life. Unless one is raised to the spiritual platform, it is not possible for him to completely transcend all material contamination. So these words I highlighted, you could guess which ones are the highlighted words. What are the highlighted words? And completely. Thank you. So this is the chart. When I read this purport, this is the presentation I wanted to do, but then I said, no, let me start with something else. And if somebody asks the question, I'll get to this. So there are 4 types of anarthas. Anarthas coming from, anarthas, you know the word anartha. Anartha means unwanted personality traits, unwanted. So this comes from previous sinful activity and also from previous pious activity. Like righteousness, somebody could say, I'm very righteous, but it may be actually an anartha coming from our previous good activities. So there's a lot of gray areas in determining whether a thing is anartha or is actually spiritual. It comes from offenses, and also it can come from bhakti. It can come from wealth, worship, fame, labha, puja. Oh, you sing so nicely. Oh, you give such nice classes. That can become an anartha, basically. And then there's anartha nivritti, just to break the bubble. Sorry, I'm breaking the bubble. To break the bubble, bhajana kriya is not going to destroy all. Even nishta will not destroy all. Even ruchi, it means taste in that bhajan. So, basically there's divisions, as you can see here. The eradication is almost, all the anarthas and the eradication of it is pervasive in nishta. And then in asakti, which is a deep attachment to Krishna, in that stage, only previous life sins can be removed absolutely. The anarthas will still remain. I could still go around the towns being righteous and saying that, hey, you're all not doing your sadhana properly, And I may be quoting from Bhagavad Gita. I may actually be doing that, but it's actually an anartha I'm carrying around, even at that higher stage. And it says, at prema, all anarthas are completely eradicated, but not absolutely eradicated. Only at prakata, which is when we reach that swarupa, complete alignment, at that stage when we are in association with Krishna personally, face to face, we can feel that complete, absolute eradication of all kinds of anarthas and sinful activities. Does that answer your question? So there's a long way to go, in short. But we have no other way than standing in front of Radha Kalachandji and singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I don't know what the ecstasy is about, that it's going to take so long. Actually, that's like Lord Chaitanya when one of the devotees was very eager. He had made a mistake, and then he was waiting to see when he will be forgiven. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, after thousands of lifetimes, and he became ecstatic. He became so happy. And people were wondering why. He said, because it's going to happen. So like that, you seem all excited that at least at the stage of prakata, we will all be absolutely freed of anarthas. We should end here, right? Yeah. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.